The Ace of Swords in Joe Bandel's Oak Tarot of Love and Romance suggests that the most romantic thing you can do for someone is to actually see them as a human being rather than a projection of your own desires. It is a striking departure from the traditional tarot, which often depicts this card as a cold intellectual breakthrough or a literal victory. Here, it is framed as the moment the rose-colored glasses of early infatuation shatter, replaced by the sharp, clear light of reality. This is not about the end of romance, but rather the beginning of a real relationship based on truth rather than fantasy.
It's a powerful shift because in most romantic narratives, we're taught that the spark is everything. But Bandel's interpretation focuses on what happens after that initial fog of chemicals begins to clear. The card shows a single upright sword of pure light, and instead of the usual crown and laurel wreath, we see a young man and woman looking at each other with a sudden, quiet excitement. It is that aha moment where you realize the person sitting across from you isn't just a character in your personal movie, but a complex, separate individual with their own history and agency.
That idea of seeing the real person is psychologically fascinating. There is a study from the journal Nature that discusses how our brains actually project our own needs onto partners in the early stages of dating. We basically hallucinate a version of them that fits our unresolved needs. Bandel calls this the mental awakening. But I wonder, isn't there a risk that this clarity kills the magic? If we strip away the idealization, does the romance survive the cold light of day?
Actually, Bandel suggests the opposite. The magic of idealization is fragile because it's based on a lie. When you stop seeing the person as a savior or a perfect archetype, you finally have the opportunity to love who they actually are. In the card, there's a strong young oak sapling sprouting at the base of the sword. The oak is a symbol of endurance and structural integrity. It tells us that while the sword's light is sharp and perhaps a bit startling, it's providing the environment for something rooted to grow. Real intimacy can't exist without that intellectual honesty.
The visual of the oak sapling at the base of a sword is a potent paradox. Swords represent the element of air, thoughts, words, and sometimes conflict, while the oak represents the earth, stability, and slow growth. It feels like he's saying that honest communication, even if it feels like a cutting truth, is the soil where a long-term connection is planted. But let's look at the gendered experiences he highlights. He mentions that the male experience with this card is often a sudden desire to really know the other person. That sounds like a shift from conquest to curiosity.
It is. For many men, early attraction can be heavily driven by visual or physical archetypes. The Ace of Swords represents the moment he pulls back the curtain and finds himself more interested in her mind and her actual personality than the image he's built up. It's a transition from "I want this" to "I want to know you." On the other side, the female experience is described as the excitement of being seen as a real individual. In a world where women are frequently idealized or reduced to roles, being truly seen for your flaws and your specific uniqueness can feel incredibly liberating and, honestly, quite rare.
It's interesting how he frames honest communication as the foundation. In traditional tarot, the Ace of Swords is often the sword of truth that cuts through deception. In a romantic context, that could mean finally having the difficult conversations you've been avoiding. But Bandel isn't describing a fight here. He describes quiet excitement and small smiles. It's the thrill of finding a mental peer. The colors he uses, crisp silvers, clear blues, and bright golds, reinforce this feeling of a fresh, clean atmosphere where you can finally breathe.
He's drawing on the history of the suit of swords as the intellectual suit, but he's softening the blow. Traditionally, the Ace of Swords is the most masculine card in the deck. It's phallic, it's sharp, it's about power. But by placing two people in the frame and focusing on their eyes meeting, Bandel turns that power into a shared resource. He's essentially saying that the sword is the shared language they are building. In his larger philosophy, the Oak Matrix, he often talks about the loving embrace of opposites. The sword isn't used against the other person, it's used to clear the weeds of misunderstanding between them.
I want to push back on the idea of seeing the real person. Is that even possible? Psychiatrist Judith Orloff has written extensively about how lust is an altered state of consciousness similar to being on drugs. If our brains are literally flooded with dopamine and oxytocin, can we ever truly see someone clearly in those early stages? Or is the Ace of Swords more about the intention to be honest rather than the achievement of perfect clarity?
That's a fair point. Perhaps it's less about reaching a final truth and more about the commitment to the process of discovery. The card is an ace, after all. Aces are seeds, they are potential. It's the start of dating, not the 50th wedding anniversary. The mental energy glowing in their clothing suggests they are energized by the challenge of learning about each other. It's the meeting of the minds that many people find more intoxicating than physical attraction. In fact, for many, intellectual chemistry is the ultimate aphrodisiac because it doesn't fade as quickly as physical novelty.
There's also a historical layer here. The oak tree has been a symbol of Zeus and Jupiter, gods of lightning and law. Lightning is a common metaphor for the Ace of Swords, a sudden strike of insight. But a lightning strike is over in a second. The oak takes that energy and turns it into wood. It's a beautiful way to think about a relationship, taking those sudden electric moments of getting someone and turning them into something structural and lasting. If you look at the history of romance in tarot, it's usually dominated by the suit of cups, emotions, water, dreams. By putting the Ace of Swords at the center of a romance deck, Bandel is making a statement. You can't have a healthy heart without a healthy head.
Exactly. He categorizes swords as platonic or mental love. It reminds me of the ancient Greek concept of philia, the love found in deep friendship and shared values. We often think of romance as purely eros, but the most enduring marriages often report that they are, first and foremost, best friends. They can talk about anything. That's the bright, upright sword of pure light in the middle of the card. It's the light of transparency. When you don't have to hide who you are or what you think, the anxiety of dating evaporates and is replaced by that quiet excitement he mentions.
It's a very modern take on the card. In older decks like the Rider-Waite-Smith, the Ace of Swords is often seen as a card of justice or legalities. In a love reading, it sometimes predicted a marriage contract or a divorce. Bandel moves away from the external legalities and focuses on the internal psychological contract. It's the moment you decide to be truthful with yourself about what you want and truthful with the other person about who you are. The mental awakening is realizing that you don't have to play a role to be loved.
And that ties into the visual detail of the simple clothing they are wearing. They aren't in royal robes or armor. They're unadorned. It suggests a lack of pretense. When you're dating someone and you finally feel comfortable enough to stop performing, that's an Ace of Swords moment. You stop trying to say the right thing and just say the true thing. The glow of fresh mental energy in the card shows that this honesty isn't draining. It's actually revitalizing. It's much more exhausting to maintain a mask than it is to just be yourself.
But isn't honesty a double-edged sword? That's a classic interpretation of the card. The same blade that cuts through a lie can also cut the person you love. If the Ace of Swords is about honest communication, how do we prevent that from becoming brutal or insensitive, especially in a new relationship where the foundation is still just a sapling, as the card shows?
That is the tension of the suit of swords. It requires precision. In the guidebook, Bandel emphasizes that truthful words are the foundation, but the card's imagery is remarkably peaceful. The sword is pure light, not cold steel. It's about illumination, not surgery. The focus is on seeing each other clearly, which implies a level of compassion. If I see you clearly, I see your wounds as well as your strengths. I'm not using my truth to hurt you. I'm using it to bridge the gap between us. The small smiles on their faces are key. They're happy about what they are seeing, even if it's different from what they expected.
It really highlights the difference between an ideal and a real person. There's a psychological concept called disillusionment that usually has a negative connotation. But in relationship therapy, healthy disillusionment is considered a milestone. It's the point where you realize your partner isn't perfect and you decide to love them anyway. Bandel is essentially celebrating that moment of disillusionment as the true beginning of the romance. The sword cuts away the ideal so the real can sprout.
It's a bold choice for a deck titled love and romance. Most people buy romance decks because they want the fantasy. They want the knight in shining armor or the eternal soulmate. By emphasizing the Ace of Swords, Bandel is telling his audience that the greatest romance is a meeting of equals who aren't afraid of the truth. It reminds me of a quote by the poet Rainer Maria Rilke, who said that love consists in this, that two solitudes protect and border and salute each other. That salute is very much what I see in the eyes of the couple on this card.
The cultural impact of this kind of imagery shouldn't be overlooked. We're living in an era of highly curated online personas and dating app fatigue. Everything is about the image. Bandel is throwing a wrench into that by making the first card of the mental suit an invitation to look beneath the curation. It's a call for radical transparency at the very start of dating. It's saying, don't wait 6 months to show who you are. Do it now and see if they stay.
And if they don't stay, the Ace of Swords has done its job. It saved you from a relationship built on a false premise. That's the victory of the card. It's not necessarily about winning a person. It's about winning your own clarity. Whether the relationship continues or not, you've gained a mental awakening. You've learned something about what you value and how you communicate. That's why the sword is made of light. It's a gift of awareness.
It's a powerful lesson for anyone navigating the messy world of modern love. Instead of looking for a match based on a list of preferences, look for someone you can have an honest conversation with. Look for the person who makes you want to put down the sword of defense and pick up the sword of light. It turns out that the most romantic thing you can do is simply tell the truth and listen when someone else does the same. That's how you plant the oak tree.
It changes the whole goal of a first date. It's not an audition, it's an exploration. If the Ace of Swords appears, it's a sign to stop worrying about being likable and start focusing on being known. When two people do that simultaneously, you get that fresh mental energy that makes everything feel new and possible. It's the birth of a connection that has the strength to actually last because it's not hiding anything in the shadows.
The idea that truth is the highest form of romance is a refreshing perspective. It moves the focus from feeling to knowing, and in doing so, it gives the relationship a much better chance of surviving the storms that the oak tree is designed to weather. It's about the courage to be seen and the curiosity to see. If you've enjoyed this look into how clarity can transform a connection, consider sharing this with someone who's navigating their own new beginning.